Okay, we've got microphone on. Okay. All right, we are going to do some art, some Christmas art today. Hi, Amy. Okay. All right, we are going to do what is art playing here? Sorry, something is. There we go. Okay, that's better. That won't be looping the sound through and giving us weird echo. That should be fixed. Tell me if it's it should be fixed now. All right. Okay, we've posted things in places. All right, Amy, are you going to paint along? All right. Oh, I wanted to get the options. Oh, and set up my video. Okay, so first of all, we'll go through kind of some of the options here. So these are all the ones that I thought that would be nice and easy to do. We do like Christmas ornament, kind of wreathy thing, kind of holly and leaves, Christmas trees, more leafy things, wreath with kind of ornament, like the one down our hallway.
Trees
With ornament, ornamenty, bugles, ornament made of leaves, double ornament. Trees sound good?
Yeah, trees are good.
Start with trees? Alright, we'll do trees.
Because ornaments go on trees. So you can have both.
The multiple trees or the trees with ornaments?
I like to do that.
This one here? Alright, we're gonna give this one a try here. I'm gonna... what am I gonna do? No, we'll leave it like this. Okay. Well, let me fix this camera. Weird location. David is also painting so that I have at least one person to paint along.
Hello! Okay, so...
Alright, so to get started, we want to have a medium-sized brush. The nice round ones are good, so something like this size is a nice one. If you only have a flat-tipped brush, you can do that too. It'll still work. The round brushes are the nicest for watercolor because it kind of gives you a lot of ability to get small and thick lines. Oh, go grab some stuff, Amy. You got time to get going. We'll be doing more than one card, so you can you can go grab all your supplies and then still join in. All right, so start by putting your brush in the water to get them wet. Down. And, I mean, you can choose whatever colors you like for this guy.
Ah, these paints. I can't tell what's green.
On this palette, so we've got a couple different palettes here. We got this nice set. This is just from Winsor & Newton. It's a set that came. I'm running out of a lot of these paints here. I've got to get some refills for them.
That looks great.
And then these two, this is a dark green, this is a light green, and this is kind of a medium green.
Yeah, everything looks like every color.
Yeah.
At this point.
Oh, we're also, yeah, no, we can just use these as palettes. That'll work fine.
So should I have a lot of water in the brush or not?
You shouldn't. So,
Okay.
See, this is what I need you here, because I would never think to answer that question.
No.
All right, so when you pull it out of the water, just push it against the edge of the jar of water. So that, or you could use a cup or anything. It's watercolor paint, so anything you use it'll wash out. So don't worry too much. You can use a drinking glass and then just wash it when you're done. If you're using inks, you might want to be more, a little more careful about it, but other than that, you'll be good.
Right, so I got paint.
Yeah, so put some water in the paint with your brush. Just kind of let it swirl around. You want to kind of let the water soak in for a second or two. These paints are pretty good, so you don't need to wait forever for them to work. Stream is set up properly. I think it is. Save local, like so that it saves the video file. I do have it saving the video file. Roger there. Alright, so when your water is good, we're going to start with doing the, actually rinse off your brush and we'll start with doing the ornaments first. So pick whatever color you want for your ornament. Make sure your brush is pretty clean. It should be pretty clean because we haven't really done anything yet. So for me, I'm going to do a gold just like our example photo here. So put some water in the yellow that you've got. Let it stick around. One thing that's nice to do is to I'll get us some spare pieces of paper we can use as kind of a thing, but otherwise you can use your top of your palette if it has space to kind of see what the color is going to look like. But if you're mixing a lot of colors, you run out of space there pretty quick. Alright, so we're going to start by drawing a little star at the top here. So depending on what paper you've got, I've got a large sheet of paper, we've got a smaller sheet of paper over on the side here. On this one, because this is relatively stiff, what I'm actually going to do is rip this out and use it so I can fold it in half as a card. If you've got a smaller piece of paper, what you can do is use the nice thick paper and then just glue it to cardstock to make a nice little fold over card. Another thing I have that I found is really nice to work with is you can buy little pre-made cards that these actually are thick enough that they do absorb the watercolor pretty nicely. And it's just so cute because they come with little envelopes and they're really easy to do. And they're small, so they're nice and quick to make too. So for this one, I'll fold this guy over and then we'll trim off the things at the top. Well, that's just a blank sheet for what I'm photographing. You don't have to worry about it.
Okay.
And I'll trim off the bottom here too because it's got the curved edge only on one edge. So I'm going to make sure I don't go low enough that I can't trim that off.
Is there any negative to just leaving it in the book and marking the halfway point?
No, no problem at all.
Okay.
Now this one has a bit of a mark on the front here. It's probably not showing up on camera, but I'm going to flip it over and use the other side. No, I'm not, because that has a bit of green paint on it already, so I'm just going to ignore it.
Yeah, we'll do this.
Great. So, pick up some yellow paint or whatever color you're using for your star and draw a little star right at the top. Now this is something I'm going to go over with gold later in a bit. If you don't have gold, don't worry about it. And Sugar's sitting over here. You say you want to stand up and show everyone to do this? No, she's chewing her bum, but she's right down here on the chair. Now, because on this image that we're working from, it has all the ornaments are in front of the greenery, we're going to do them first. Because on watercolor, you can't really paint over other colors easily. Stars coming on. The nice thing about this is that these are all kind of different sizes. They're kind of randomly distributed. It makes it just, you don't have to be too perfect about it. You can just be kind of easy and just put them where you want. So we're going to remember the general outline of the triangle of the tree. One thing we could do is we can use a bit of a pencil. Use a pencil to lightly mark out kind of where we want that triangle to be. That way you have an idea when you're painting so that you know what you're doing and keep it under control. So I don't know if you can see that line. I just very lightly drew a little triangle on the page. Then I'm going to go through
it's a massive...
then I'm going to go through and start adding some circles. And yeah, make sure you want to keep things simple, keep all your lines, you know, quick and easy. You don't want to, the more detail you start adding, the more it's going to look overworked. Now I'm going to, actually I will just keep these all nice and yellowy. I'm going to add a little bit of second color yellow though, to kind of give it some variation. And you want to make sure your ornaments are a couple different sizes. 2 or 3 sizes is good, but try not to go more than that because then it's just going to look kind of random. Make sure some of them are close to each other and some of them are not. again, you want to give it kind of a natural flair to it. I'm also making sure to do them in rows. So I'm just kind of envisioning to myself like 1 row, 2 row. Now this row is big enough, I'm going to add another couple more along. If your paint starts to dry out, you don't have enough, just add more water into the wells. Now, one thing I want to do is make sure you're keeping a couple of them close to each other, and that gives it a nice little bit of randomness. Yeah, don't worry about putting too many on the page. Just get a couple little items on here. Yeah, so I think mine's about done in terms of the ornaments. That's looking good.
Yeah, I don't do watercolors.
Well, that's the whole thing.
My preferred method of art is Sharpie. Like black Sharpie.
But I mean, the nice thing about the designs that I chose is that they're all relatively simple and easy, so that you don't have to be a master watercolor artist to do them.
Yeah.
Now I'm going to go through with my eraser because I can visualize where those lines are. If you think you're going to have trouble, don't erase them yet. Just try not to paint over them, because once you paint over them, it's going to be harder to erase them, but not impossible and not a big deal. Either way, we're using a dark green paint, or I'm using a dark green paint. If you're doing your tree in a different color, maybe you're doing a white tree or kind of a blue tree or, something fun. You want to be more careful how much you paint over the pencil lines. But even so, with watercolor, you generally can erase a little bit. The other thing you want to be careful is to not blow all the dust into wet paint. Make sure you don't touch the wet paint while it's still drying, or you will definitely smudge it. So it's good.
Did I get the star pointy? It didn't work.
Yeah, that's okay though. I mean, mine's not super pointy. Yeah, see there, I just kind of smudged a bit of my yellow line in there, but that's okay. We'll just cover it up with some green. All right, so next up, we're going to move on to green. Oh, I know. YouTube level so I can see if there's comments on YouTube. That would be helpful. Now, the one biggest thing you want to make sure when you're doing watercolor is that you don't touch wet color to another wet color, because it will just blur out. So especially because we're working with yellow and green, you definitely don't want to touch the green to the yellow, or it will absolutely just blend into the ornament and you'll lose the nice crisp ornament shape you have. There we go. Oh, hey, Kippy's watching too. Excellent. Are you painting along, Kippy? This shirt, I love this shirt because it looks really good with the cute rolled up sleeves, but the sleeves always unroll themselves constantly. So let's just do that before I start dragging them through the paint. We're gonna wear a nice Christmassy forest green. There we go. All right, so I think we already put water in our green, but probably put a little bit more in to freshen it up. And so what we're doing with this one is kind of vertical lines. Now you don't want your rows to touch each other, so start with a little bit of a small row right at the top. Grab a bit of a darker green just to mix it up. And then, yeah, just kind of do some little brushy strokes like that. And then your tree lines don't have to all be the same, like, perfect triangle. They can be if that's what you like, but for us, we're going to kind of do some kind of more, a little bit more random lines. And make sure you're using your brush at different pressures, because thin pressures, if you have a nice round brush like this, will create a really thin stroke. And then the more you push down, the thicker strokes you'll get as well, which all adds nice variation to it. Oh, I didn't turn my ring light on. That's why it's so dark. Oh my god. Okay, there we go. That's a bit brighter. I'm like, why does the paper look so yellow? There we go. And then if you like, you can always go back in and add kind of different colors over while it's still wet. It'll kind of blend itself in there, which is a really nice look in watercolor, to get all the different colors kind of mixed together. And then see how I was careful to kind of go around that ornament there and not actually touch it. As you move down, you want to make sure your rows get a bit heavier too. Or basically what I mean by heavier is thicker. Making sure to add in little bits of color all over. But yeah, this is coming together. If you're painting along at home, I hope your Christmas tree is coming along nicely. Put my water on this side of the desk. Drip water across my painting if I continue the way I'm doing. And if you find something that area is a little bit too light, just add more pigment to your brush and come back in. Top. But yeah, so now I'm making my rows thicker. Yeah, I'm not worrying too much about detail or specifically where the colors are touching or anything, as long as I don't touch the ornament. And if you do touch one or two, it's not a big deal either. It'll still look good. Yeah, see, I touched that yellow in there, but it was mostly dry, so it didn't cause too much of a problem. And especially on the bottom row, you want to make sure you're definitely getting some big, bold strokes. They don't all have to touch each other. You can leave some white space. Some of the best part about watercolor painting is how you use the white space. That's kind of one of the things that really makes watercolor interesting and a bit different than some other painting techniques, is that it uses a lot of blank space and how that blends into the surroundings. One nice thing about watercolor too is if you do make a mistake, often you can remove it completely or majoritively. If you have a piece of paper towel or a Kleenex, you just blot it once on the page. Don't double blot, because now you're just moving that pigment around. But if you blot it once, take it away, fold over to a clean piece of paper towel or Kleenex, and then blot it again, you can actually remove a lot of color if you've got somewhere in the wrong spot. If it doesn't move out completely, add some clean water to the page where you want to remove the pigment and do the same thing again. Just blot it away, and that extra water will help, will actually help get rid of the pigment that's in the wrong place. But one of the nice things about watercolor too is that you can just kind of make things work. Like if you put something in the wrong place and you're like, oh no, that wasn't what I meant. It's like, well, I'm just trying to see, can you make it?
No sugar.
Feeling uppity about. You just try to see if you can blend it in and kind of make it work for you.
Happy
so it's looking really good.
Happy little accident.
Exactly.
Go Bob Ross.
Now I'm just kind of giving out some extra kind of interesting areas here to kind of...
My tree's a big boy.
It looks good. But yeah, so like for this tree in particular, we've left a lot of white space in between the rows. That's helping. But yeah, it's looking cute. Right, I'm going to add a little bit of sparkly gold paint to the star on top and maybe to some of these ornaments. If you don't have gold paint, don't worry about it. But if you do, this is a great place to bust it out. And even if you don't have gold watercolors, if you have like gold acrylic or something, wait till it's dry, and then you can add a little bit of gold acrylic on top, something like that. Or gold marker if you've got a gold marker pen, you know, something like that. Gold Sharpie, you can use those as well. This is, what brand is this? Finetec. I love the Finetec. They have some great shimmer colors. Oh, and happy holidays to everyone. I hope everyone's having a lovely Christmas season, or whatever holiday it is you celebrate. I'm just using this to kind of point out my star a little bit more because it wasn't super sharp. But it's not a big deal either way. And especially because it's watercolor, it's actually, when you go over it with more water, it picks up the color underneath. So I'm going to use that. And I'm just using the very fine tip, very light pressure in order to get those tiny little flicks at the end there. Keep it sharp. Go. Yeah, I'm gonna add a little bit of gold glitter to these ornaments here, which won't show up really on screen, but will look nice on in reality. And I'm gonna use a different color because I have a couple colors, and the ornaments were all different colors. And again, being careful not to touch the green, because if I touch the green with this, it'll start bleeding out into itself. But overall, that's looking pretty good. I think that one's about done. As yours looking, oh, it looks really good.
Yeah. Where's the glitter? One answer.
These are the glitter.
Okay.
Get on the glitter.
Okay.
Perfect. So that was the first card. Nice and easy. Just a little simple guy. Oh yeah, make sure your brush is clean before you dip it into a new color. That's okay. You can just use it. I have some paper towel. Just blot it out.
I don't want to ruin your glitter paints.
You can't ruin watercolor. It's really easy in that respect. Just blot it away from them.
Okay.
Reach over, grab my water.
Okay.
But if anyone following along at home has an idea of what they would like to see next, please enter it in the chat. We went through kind of some different ideas of like some ornament styles. These are really easy and simple to do. Some little kind of greenery. That one's mistletoe. Clusters of ornaments. This is kind of a group shot of all the different types. Things like you can make a circle out of greenery. That was kind of neat. Wreaths are really cute. You could do that in greenery or ornaments or both. Just greenery, kind of a half wreath, kind of more open. Just trees. We could do kind of more of just a watercolor tree, a little bit more realistic.
There we go. I think I'm done.
Ooh, it looks cute. And then something like holly. I love holly. I've always loved drawing holly. More of a wreath with lettering. Something like that might be cute. and just more of a simple one. This one has actually pen lines over top of it, which we could do as well. So if anyone is interested in anything specifically, shout out. Otherwise, we'll let David choose the next one too.
Oh God. So much pressure.
So much. So one of the things about the one I did is that you don't need to add a trunk on it. I'll show you the one David did where he added a trunk on it. So either way works. You kind of get more of the abstract kind of minimalist feel without the trunk. If you add the trunk and the bottom, you get more of a realistic look. Cool. Okay, well, look. So this one turned out really good. You can kind of see the different shades of green and all the coloring, and you can see how this one has a trunk at the bottom. Cool. So they look really good. Is there another one that you're interested in?
What do we got? We got ornaments. Let's do an ornament.
Do an ornament? Do you want to do a one or a cluster?
It's gonna be a nailed it though. Look at that. Look at that 3D. Yeah, let's do like that one. I guess.
This one is nice. Okay, we're gonna do this nice simple one. So the trick to this one is really to leave that little white space to make those little highlights so it looks like it's shining and reflecting the light. So you want to take your time, move your brush carefully, and make sure you leave the white space. I'll go through and show how we're gonna do it. Move your wet painting somewhere flat so that it can just sit and dry. I might do this one on a little, I'll do this piece of paper so I can do it nice and big for you guys so you can see it easily. Now, this paper is really nice because it has two different textures, so your paper might be like this too. You might have a side that's a little bit smoother and a side that's a little bit rougher. You can use either one. It just kind of depends on what you like. And if you don't know what you like, practice with both and see how, if you notice a difference even. The better you get, the more you will notice the difference.
So a question from a newbie.
Yes.
What's the best way to clean off the brush without destroying the brush?
So for most part with watercolors, if you're moving between like colors that are, nothing too crazy, like you're not using a black or a dark purple or something, if you just like rinse off the brush in the water, just kind of push it down a little bit gently at the bottom. You don't want to like scrub it or brush it, rub it, because you'll ruin all your bristles and you'll hurt it. Yeah. So you push it gently down at the bottom to kind of release some of the pigment from inside the bristles and then along the side, and then you pull it up and you should be able to see whether there's a lot of pigment in there or not. If there is a lot, or you just came from a really dark color, you can test it out. If you're getting this kind of like really translucent-y color, it looks pretty much like water, that's not going to matter. When you pick up the new color, that won't be present. If you're getting a solid color still on your brush, what you can do, or if you came from a dark color, is use paper towel. You do the same rinsing, wipe it off on the paper towel, and then test again. If your water's gotten really dark, just switch out your water. Just go dump it and get fresh water. For me, generally, like unless I'm painting for hours, I don't need to worry about that, or unless I'm painting with like a black ink, it doesn't, usually your water will stay watery enough that it doesn't matter. Once you pick up the new pigment, it won't really show. Okay. But yeah, the biggest thing is to not smush or jab or be violent.
Yeah, I asked because I wanted to avoid that.
You want to just be gentle. The other thing that is important to remember with brushes is to not leave them in water for a long time. So if you're done painting, don't leave them soaking in water for hours or overnight, because it will damage how it's actually attached. In cheap brushes, they're attached with glue. In good brushes, they're attached with pressure. But either way, you will start to ruin the finish on your actual brush. I've done that with a lot of brushes because I'm terrible at forgetting to leave them in water. And you can see the wood swells and then this cracks, or even if it's plastic, the finish can crack off. And also it ruins the brush. Like, see how this is kind of like, it's kind of frayed out and it doesn't look as nice as this one, which is all smooth and in shape. So don't leave them in water overnight. All right, so pick a new color for your ornament. We're going to start with drawing the outside circle shape. So for me, I'm going to use a nice pink because I've got a nice pink here. This one's really much a red. What color are you thinking of? Blue? Oh, that's a beautiful blue. Okay, so make sure you put some water in your pink color. Let it kind of soak in for a second and get on your brush. Test, see how it's coming. And then, so this one on our reference drawing is not directly in the center of the page, especially because this one is such a singular ornament and there really isn't anything else on the page, I would recommend not doing it dead smack in the center. Do it a little bit to the side or a little bit up, just a little bit off so it looks more natural and more kind of random.
Well, I have to draw a circle now.
You too, but don't worry too much about it. See how even in this example, like, it's not perfect. It has like a little lumpy thing on the side here, and it's just, it's really not, it's not specific. You don't have to worry about getting it exactly right. That's kind of the nice thing. I picked ones that were all about the kind of natural imperfections and variations so that if you don't have the steadiest hand, you can still make them look really good. So give yourself a nice big circle. Don't fill it in yet because, like I said, we are going to be making sure we leave some white space. Alright, I would start working with a bigger brush even. You'll have a bit of an easier time.
Oh, okay.
One of the nice things about watercolor is that the big brush is fun to use. Hi, Sugar. Oh, friend, are you going to be present on the camera? I don't even know what's going on. Would you like to paint? Would you like to paint the brush? So once you've got it in, start from this darker area down here. We're going to pick up quite a bit of pigment, work it in, and then as we move up, we're going to make sure we leave a couple like little white spaces. And then we can fill in closer and closer to those as we go. And also see how naturally my brush got lighter as I got closer to the top because it ran out of pigment. That's a good way of naturally getting that kind of gradient effect. And then I left really huge spaces. I'm going to go in and make them a bit smaller now. Yeah, so you need a bit more water in your brush there. If you're getting really, I'll show you on another piece of paper, if you're getting dry brush effects like this, where it's kind of leaving lots of white space behind, you don't have enough water. Don't worry about that.
Oh.
Definitely don't try to drip it off your page because you just drip it all the way up.
Okay.
Basically, you can always just smush up. If you have too much water, like way too much water on something, what you can do is dry off your brush in the thing, just like scrape off the extra water and then soak up some of the water into your brush. If you have way too much on the page, just get a piece of paper towel and blot it.
Gotcha.
There you go. I don't think you actually do that. No. Yeah, you might want to pick up more pigment, but yeah.
I know.
Yeah, that's looking good. You've left some white space, so just be careful to maintain that because the closer you get to it, the more likely you are to lose it. But yeah, so if you're getting white spaces in your brush like this, kind of stroke-wise, use more water. If you're getting too much water, use less water in your brush. And when you're picking up from your palette, you want quite a bit of water in there, but you don't need to like soak it in every time you go in. Just like pick up just a little bit on the end of your brush, for instance. Yeah, this one's really easy. Like my ornament's done there. We're just going to add the little thing on top and then we'll come back in once it's all dry with a fine tip marker pen or just a regular pen and draw the little black details and write the lettering out. So I'll go over some examples. If you're using a really skinny brush, it can make things harder than it has to be because you think you have more control. But one of the things about watercolor is that it looks best when you kind of relinquish some of the control. So if you just let it go, give it a go, and just make sure you leave some white space. Now I'm going to come back in with some more pigment down here. But it's about kind of that free form, kind of flowing feel. That looks pretty good. Alright, let's do the, it's wet now, I'll get it out of the way. Let's add the top bit to this. So, go back, clean off your brush a bit, go back into the yellow. Now you can switch to a finer brush for this, but you don't really need to. If you're using a good quality brush, it'll have a thin tip on it. If you're using like a little dollar store or Walmart brush, you might want to switch to a smaller brush for this. Just so that you can make sure you get that actual detail work on the top. So just do kind of a little what is this? Trapezoid rhombus shape. And I think if your paint here is dry, you have a little bit more leeway to go over it. If your paint is still wet, make sure you leave that white space. It'll look good either way. And then just go up a bit into a little bit of a loop. And that's really all you need. Good. You can add a little bit of gold on top of that if you want.
I mean, instead of I recommend an icosahedron.
Oh, excellent.
With several quantum
even
states.
Fancy. Yours is even fancier than mine. You've got more detail on your little gold bit.
Yeah, I use this tiny brush, like you recommended not to.
Well, this is a nice little part to use a tiny brush for because it's a little bit of a detail aspect. Yeah. So you make sure you got the white part, you've got some gradation in the color, the darker pigment to the more watery part of your brush, and then we're looking at that. So we're going to set those aside and let them dry before we try to put a marker on them. All right. What do you want to do next?
Oh, we're still going?
We're still going.
I don't know, some kind of wreath?
Yeah, we've only been going for 40 minutes, so we'll keep going for at least an hour. Hey, how's it going? Mm-hmm. You want to do the wreath with the lettering?
Joy! Sure.
Okay. This one's nice and easy, so...
Yeah, except for the straight lines. Or is that after the fact?
That's after the fact. Well, we can do them with paint or with lettering, so it kind of depends on what you... Oh, the lines are on the edge? Yeah, you can do that with a ruler for that.
Yeah, good,
yeah,
okay, because my hands aren't that
recommend
steady.
Doing anything like that with a ruler. I'm good. Merry Christmas. How is your Christmas Eve doing today? Are you going to paint along with us? We have a couple cards left to do. Oh, and my camera cut out. That's fun. Oh, it's back. Thank God. Oh my God, I had so much struggles with my camera again today. It's like every time I fucking go, the camera dies. I had to like re-download the drivers 3 times. I had to restart my computer 3 times. I had to do the whole rigmarole repeatedly. So it was really dumb. Now this one I think I am going to do on one of my little cards just because this one already has a little gold border, which will look nice. Now, for this one, we've got kind of 2 different colors going on. We've got a green in a couple different shades and a little bit red berries. So we're going to start with green. And if you have a couple different shades of green, that'll be nice too. Now for me, because I'm working on a much smaller card, I'm going to switch to a smaller brush. If you're working on a full big size sheet of paper, you don't need to do that. And again, with watercolor, you often want a brush that's a little bit bigger than you think you want. So this guy's pretty small, so I'm going to use one of these nice little guys. So get some water into your colors. Draw. That's a really good idea. I will absolutely actually do that for this. So for this one, because the spacing on this is so important, it's not crowded, it's quite open. It has a lot of white space to it. We're going to draw it in with a pencil first so that we know where we're putting marks, just to make sure it's clear. So, right in the center, you've got a circle. Just sketch a little bit of a circle, and then kind of sketch your other letters in as well, so that they're all kind of the same size and shape. Your letters are going to want to be a little bit bigger than your circle, depending on if you're drawing your circle for the middle of the wreath, the outside of the wreath, the inside of the wreath. However you know you're doing it. For me, I'm kind of drawing the circle in the center of the wreath because that's where the pencil marks are going to be the least noticeable, but I'm also drawing it really lightly in pencil, so it really doesn't matter for me. If you're drawing it a bit heavier in pencil, I'd recommend the center, but you can do whatever makes sense for you. The biggest important thing here is to make sure you're leaving enough white space. So the letters are really only a little bit bigger than a third on this page here, so make sure they're not close to the edges or it's going to look very crowded. You want to make sure you have that good white space there. So I don't know if you can even see that on camera, but we've got the letters and there's a circle in the middle there too. But yeah, I'd give this one out a sketch and pencil for sure. Should we go back?
No dark. You're involved.
You are involved. Alright, so first up, get a little bit of green on your brush. Again, this is one I would recommend actually going with a smaller brush. You want to start, you're going to go with one color first, so don't fill it in fully. Just do a couple little leaves around the whole thing. Now my brush actually had a little on it, so make sure there's not a whole bunch of water because you'll have a little bit more control. You're trying to get just kind of these little pointed oval shapes. Once you've done a bunch in one color, that's good. Clean off your brush and switch to a different color green. And then just go through and add them going in different directions. Now these ones are all pretty much the same size. If you're going to do different sizes, do 2 or 3 different sizes, not more than that. If it's just a whole range, it'll look messy. If you've got 2 or 3 sizes, it'll look good. Same with colors. 2 or 3 colors is nice. If you start going 5, 6, 7 colors, it just looks like a mess. One easy way to make different colors is to just use more water. I just like rinsed off most of the water from my brush, and I'm going to go in and do kind of some lighter leaves here. And then that's still actually much darker than I was expecting, so I'm going to go through and do that again and just lighten my brush again. So what you want to do here is go around the whole circle kind of more randomly and then switch colors.
Oh, I'm not switching colors. This is just water.
Oh, you're just going to... Yeah, okay, so switch different water levels, basically.
Okay.
But kind of go through the whole leaf so that way it's evenly distributed with the different colors. Now, one thing that I'm going to add here, which you can see in this one, is a little bit of blue. Just a touch of blue will give it kind of just a bit of an interesting kind of look to it. A lot of leaves do have blue kind of undertones. So it'll just, make sure it's not too much blue. I think I actually added way too much there, so I'm going to go back and add green to my brush. Kind of give it up, yeah. Add a little bit more blue. And you can kind of experiment and just go through. Try different things. Make sure you're keeping a light touch so that you keep those points sharp. If you've already kind of lost it and they're all kind of going round, just start rounding off. That'll look fine. Yeah, one thing you want to be careful, be wary of, I guess, is one thing looks bigger, so you add it over there, and then the other one looks bigger, so you add a bit more, and you just kind of, and everything ends up too big by the end of it. So if one thing's off, don't worry too much about it if it's going to mean you have to make everything off. And don't worry if a couple of the pieces are kind of sticking out a bit, that can look cute. Yeah, I think mine's almost done here. I don't want to make it too busy. Make sure you leave some white space, the all-important white space.
This looks more Roman than anything. Look at this. It looks like a Caesar. Armar virumque cano.
Yeah. So once you've got that, for this one, we are going to be... This depends. You can either wait till it dries and then draw some dots that overlap on the green, or you can just make sure your red dots, your little holly, doesn't touch the green. If it touches the green while it's still wet, you are going to have a weird bleed effect. So try to avoid it. Sometimes those effects can look really nice too, because again, you kind of want that imperfection of watercolor to make it look really cool. So don't worry too much if you do get a bit of bleed, but try to avoid it by just being careful to leave white space and making sure things are dry before you overlap. For me, I picked up some red on my brush and just go. Now the important thing with the holly, keep them small. Try not to let them get too large. Holly's a small little berry. And try to bunch them up into little clusters. Holly kind of naturally does that. Two next to each other there. One here. And try to fill in some of the white space that you've left from the greenery. Like I had a big white gap there, so I'm going to put Holly there.
I almost stuck the brush in the gold.
Oh dear.
I cleaned it off. Put the gold on the... Okay.
I really like holly in clusters of 3. Maybe I could zoom this in a bit. I feel like I could see what I feel like it's yellowy again, but it's not much of Okay, that's probably a little bit clearer, maybe. Who knows?
This looks so goddamn Christmassy.
Right? Looks good. Try not to go more than 3 in a cluster or it might start to look a little weird. Just again, too busy, anything. But 2 or 3 look really nice. And then you gotta try to make sure you've kind of spread like the parts that are poking off the wreath pretty evenly around. You can see I've kind of got like 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 or 6 little edges that stick out. If you have too many or too few of that, it'll just kind of, oops. Oh, that looks really cute. So we got a different style of doing it over here, which is kind of more even all around. We've kind of got leaves that are pretty evenly spread out, like 1, 2, 1, 2, 1, 2, and then little clusters of berries right along the center of the line, which looks really good as well. So there's lots of different ways to do it. The nice thing about these designs is that they're all really open to interpretation. You can kind of do whatever you feel like, and it's still going to look really good. So we're going to paint in the little letters here. Because we have the gold paint, I'm going to use the gold paint. And this one, especially if you're drawing out with pencil, that's a good idea. If you're doing a really large card, I would even almost use a ruler to make sure that the letter lines are straight. For us, these are pretty small, so it's not a big deal. Now this gold paint is very translucent, so we are going to want to add some actual yellow paint to it as well. And then make sure you don't have too much water on your brush because you want these lines to be very stiff. And just carefully go around your lines. Now this is honestly, it's not a super big deal if the pencil line does show through because it'll add a little bit of darkness to it, which can be helpful. Carefully paint your lines. If you kind of, if they end up a little bit wobbly or a little bit too thick, that's fine too. It's all supposed to look hand painted. And if anyone is painting along and you have any questions, or if you're thinking about doing this in the future and you have any questions, let me know in the chat. But yeah, that one looks good. I want it a little bit darker. And you can always go over and re-add layers of watercolor. There we go. Oh, this one turned out really cute. I'm quite pleased with this one. I think it looks nice. That's looking great. So one of the things about this lettering is because it's super simple, it doesn't have the bar across the J. You can add the bar across the J, but this one's going to look really good if you just keep it simple.
I never even noticed.
Yeah, you can do it either way. But yeah, definitely, especially if you're trying to copy something and you want it to look same, it's all the little tiny details that make it different. So things like, what is the letter formatting? Does it use crossbars? Does it use serifs? Does it use all the little details? You could even, if you wanted to make sure you got something exactly right, you could even like copy it out, kind of trace it, things like that to make sure you do it. It's good. I would make this one a little bit darker because it looks kind of like a different color.
It is a different color. Okay.
Alright, so we're doing good so far. We've got 3 cards. This one is for mine, is still drying, so we won't touch it up yet. This one's looking pretty good. All the gold's looking shimmery. Alright. I think we have time for one more card here today. And then we'll spend a little bit of time kind of adding some details to some of these. That was good. I'll give it a look. So this is the completed Joy card over here. Actually, the one thing I would suggest is extending that tail up so that it matches the same width as the top of the board there. So just not even like fully, just like to about there probably. See if you can kind of do it there. Are you using that big brush?
Yeah, that's what I've been using.
Okay, yeah.
It's working for me.
Yeah, keep using. No, that's the nice thing. These are good quality brushes. They have like a very fine tip, so they're really good for doing that. That's good, yeah. Yeah, I would honestly just leave it there. Yeah. Perfect. Alright, what one do we want to do last? We haven't done kind of like a filled in circle. We could do a group of ornaments, kind of mistletoe, more of a real tree.
A mistletoe, maybe.
Mistletoe one? Alright, so the mistletoe one looks like this.
Oh, you can see the gold shimmer.
Yeah, it's nice in person because it's very subtle thing. And once it's dry, it looks different than when it's wet.
I don't think there's very much gold.
Yeah, that's a nice one. Alright, so for the mistletoe one, I'll do another big one just so that it's easier to see on camera. Okay, it's a little rough. Hold it the other way, just to get rid of that kind of edge that was a little bit beat up. It's nice to pay attention to your paper as you're working, especially for something like this. If you're folding it, pick the best side. Oh, I'm so pleased I got this camera working. So frustrating. I wish I could just leave you with that. He's just hanging out.
He's like good.
Oh, it's not fun. Right, so for this one, we're going to start with, this one has a really nice, two things. People confuse mistletoe with holly. Mistletoe doesn't have red berries, holly does. Mistletoe actually sometimes has white berries, but in this one it didn't show any berries. So we're just going to go with kind of some, also white's hard to do in watercolor. So we're just going to do these kind of like we've been working with a lot of very deep kind of foresty greens. So for this one, we're going to try to go more of a kind of gray, subdued kind of green. The way to do that, you can kind of add a little bit of kind of more of a purpley bluey tones into your green, and just make sure you're using a lot of water. So for this one, I'm going to use a bigger brush because these are nice big leaves here. And then we're going to kind of add the stems in after we've done the leaves first. So we're going to start with one color. We're going to start with the lighter color first because it's easier to do the darker over the lighter. So try to build up in your palette kind of a light gray kind of colored green. What we might do is actually use a piece of paper to test our colors. It's a great idea when you're trying to get a specific thing. So we're going to add a little bit of blue. It's kind of a weird It's been a long camera. So I've got a nice green, and then we're gonna, I don't know why this camera looks so yellow today. Whatever. Just add a little bit of blue to it and keep it light, and then kind of drag it out. See how that looks much grayer compared to the original green? It's kind of more subdued.
Yeah, that's just blue.
Use more water. I'd use a bigger brush too. Especially for mixing, a bigger brush makes it much easier to mix colors.
Oh, you're right.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so we're going to want a couple of different ones, so make sure you pick out a couple of different shades that you like making, and then you can make them again. So yeah, use quite a bit of water and a moderate amount of blue. You don't want so much blue that the leaf looks blue, but you want enough blue that it looks gray. So if it's like this, if it turns out too blue, which you can't see because I'm showing it off camera, there we go. Just add more green in, and then drag it out with some more water to make it lighter again. If you ever got a color that's too dark when you're mixing, just add more water and drag it out to another part of the page, and it'll lighten itself up. So we're going to start by doing these leaves here. We'll start by drawing in a pencil shape first, so that it's a little bit more contained. Otherwise, this type of image could very easily get out of hand. So you've got a couple stems at the top, and a bow. So don't start too close to the top. do kind of a little bit of a shape like that, and then just kind of a round shape like that. And you don't want it to go all the way to the bottom of the page, so make sure you leave a little bit of space at the bottom and quite a bit of space at the top. Got there?
Yeah.
So if you can see that on camera, it's just like a little uneven diamond shape. And then once it's dry, we'll probably go in and erase those lines. Yeah, that's good. Yeah, that's actually a good size too. Yeah. Now, if your paint is still wet, you can actually pick it up right off your mixing page. Otherwise, just mix some more. So we're going to do the light colored ones first on this. So going through, we're going to start with a stem up at the top, just one stem because the other stem's in a different color. And then do the first leaf. You're just kind of trying to do something with a point at the end, which is nice. Why it's nice to have a round brush, because you can just do thick, and then as you lighten up on the pressure, it'll make a point. And then just kind of disperse these randomly. So thick, and then lighten up on the pressure, and it'll make a little point. You gotta fill it in if you want that shape of that one. And don't worry too much about any one leaf. Try to make them all the same type of shape though, because if you're making a plant and all the leaves are different shapes, it's not one plant anymore, it's a whole bunch, and it's not gonna look natural. Now, I'm not worried about this being very light. See how this is very watery? Because this is my background color. It's supposed to be quite light. I'm just going to go through kind of randomly and do a bunch of these very light leaves. Kind of facing in different directions, but all kind of the same size and shape. Because this is one plant, I would keep them all the same shape and the same size.
I don't know what I'm doing.
So your ones are kind of turn into skinny. So to get this kind of mistletoe shape, just make them wider at the top or at the non-base part.
Yeah.
Base part? Or whatever.
I don't know this one.
Yeah, so what I would do is just use your brush, get a little bit more water in the brush, and then kind of just push into the edge. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, careful not to. You can always lift your brush up before it gets to the edge of the leaf. Yeah, and then that makes. Yeah, and do the same thing. Start a new leaf at this point. Probably somewhere randomly down the page. And just press quite heavily to get a thick section, and then lighten it up to get a
I need more paint.
Yeah, I do. So you're also holding your brush very close to the tip. If you hold your brush up a little bit further, paradoxically, it gives it a better artistic shape, because if you hold it close to the tip, it feels like you have more control, but you don't actually want that much control in watercolor. You want a bit of looseness and a bit of openness. I would use the thick brush. This is a thick brush type of
Really?
leaf. Yeah.
Okay. Well, this 100%. One is not working, so I need it to...
And if you're having trouble with one of these, just take a scrap piece of paper and just start practicing. Like, practice drawing your leaf shapes until you get a leaf shape you like, and you can do it consistently. So I'll show it kind of in a darker color so we can see it. See what it looks like. So basically, push down, thick, and then pull light, and then fill in your other side to get that shape. I don't even know if that was on camera. So here, watch this. So, oh, that one looks really good. Yeah, that's exactly what you want.
Yeah.
Okay, so you figured it out.
I'm just using the small brush because it works for me. So yeah.
So I mean, it is kind of a skill to learn how to do it with a thicker brush. Once you get the hang of it, it's really nice to be able to do it because it's quicker, it's faster, and you get more of a natural look than manually kind of drawing out the shape and filling it in. But you can do that too with a fine brush. But the nice thing about these is, yeah, you just push a little bit and then release to make the tip and just fill in the other side of it. Oh, it's the I Demand Figgy Pudding song. I don't know if you guys saw the meme about that one. Now, see, I'm wiping a lot of the color off on my my sheet here because I want these really light.
Yeah, yeah.
That's okay. You just have darker ones.
That's okay.
Yeah. So make sure you fill in a couple random ones throughout.
Yeah.
Don't fill in too close. See how mine have quite a bit of white space in between them? And then when you do this, sometimes it tries to pull the darkness into the last place you left your brush. So just use your brush and push the darkness up closer to the rest of the leaf.
Learn to manipulate the darkness.
Exactly. That's all painting really is, honestly.
What a Christmassy message. Learn to manipulate the darkness or else the darkness will manipulate you.
I think that's all art really is, honestly. But yeah, so I'm not worrying if I go over the pencil lines. I am making sure I keep it in the same kind of general area. And then once you've drawn in quite a few of those leaf shapes, you can go through and start adding in some stems into them. Just kind of drag the stem up. Kind of close to the center of the bundle of mistletoe. That's where it would all be. If it was a plant, it would all be stemming from the center of this bundle, right? They don't all need to connect. They don't all need to go somewhere. You're just giving kind of the impression of some lines. Now I'm going to switch to my next color. I'm going to do, I think, probably 3 separate colors in this, but I'll see how it looks after 2. If it looks busy enough, I won't do the 3rd color. But I'm going to add more of a darker green, but this one's going to still have quite a bit of gray in it. So I'm going to add a little bit of blue, and I'm going to add a little bit of purple to this one, just to kind of really gray it out. But purple's very strong, so you don't need a lot. But see how that made a nice kind of sagey green? I don't know if you can see. I feel like the lighting is so yellow and it's not very clear what's actually going on color-wise, or at least it doesn't look like it does in reality. But yeah, I'm just kind of adding these dark blue kind of cool tones to make this really, I added a bit more dark blue and it made it this really kind of dark but gray kind of greeny tone, like a dark olive kind of tone, which is going to look really nice with this kind of light kind of olive. Now these are dried really quickly because I didn't use too much water. If yours is still really wet, I would wait a minute, wait for it to dry, just go get a drink and come back, and then paint over it. Because we don't really want the colors to blend into each other, we want them to overlap nicely. So I am just going to start doing some more leaf shapes. Again, I'm making sure to keep them the same size in this case, because these are all the same plant. They're all the same level of growth. It's literally just sprigs from the same plant. And again, I'm not doing the stems yet. I'm just going through and doing leaves. So kind of thicker. These are actually, I mean, you can call this triangle shaped leaves. They're kind of thick at the top and pointed at the end. You can dog get these. And again, if all the dark color goes to the bottom, just kind of push it back up to the top. Yeah, I'm pleased with this color. I am going to do a 3rd color for sure, though, because these are both very, I don't know, desaturated, I guess. They're both very gray, which is nice. It's kind of what I wanted, but I do want a bit of a darker color in here as well. Now I'm just kind of filling in some of the space, making sure it's not too... One of the tricks as you go is kind of learning what's a good amount of natural variation and bunchiness and what's a good amount of leaving white space so it doesn't look too artificial. Just add a bit more pigment because we're getting that light there. And make sure they're kind of sticking out in different directions. So those ones were all kind of facing down, so I'm going to do one that's sticking out pretty much just direct sideways. That'll again kind of make it look like it's more like a bunch of leaves. That's looking great.
I don't know the shape we're going for.
Yeah, no, that's fine. I don't actually know what mistletoe looks like in real life. I assume it's some form of this type of leaf because this says mistletoe on it, and I found it on the internet, so gotta be true. If you were interested in getting it accurate, what I would do is just look up a picture of mistletoe and then work from there. Figure out what leaf shape it is. Most plants have a distinct leaf shape. So like I'm doing kind of a triangle shape. We did kind of a like more pointed shape previously. And and kind of simplify the shape basically. You don't need to get any specifics, you just need to get the general shape idea. So I'm still making sure to leave some white space in here because I know I want to add a third color. If you're only doing 2 colors, this is when you go through and make sure you have filled in all those kind of gaps. Now, I haven't really started to overlap leaves, but I'm going to start to do that now. How's it going?
Supposed to overlap things?
You can, once they're dry. Don't overlap them if they're still wet. Yeah, you can actually blow on paint to help it dry faster, but in general, it's easier to just like take a break and go somewhere and then you dry when you come back. Or, my favorite, just start a new painting. That works too. Alright, so I'm going to move on to my third. Oh, wait, I'm forgetting to draw my stems. Draw all your stems in for your new color. Again, just point them all back towards the center of the bundle. Not super picky about what they look like or do. Now, I've got just enough space in here to add another color. This one's going to be a little bit darker. But again, I am still going to make sure there's a little bit of blue in it because this whole image is just kind of that color theme. That might be too much though. But yeah, this is much darker color here. There we go. But yeah, it still has that nice kind of same tonal sound. And at this point, I'm going to be sure to overlap some of them because we're filling in all the extra space. That one's still too wet. So I want to put one there that overlaps, but I'm not going to do it yet. I'm going to wait till they're dry. Whereas over here, I've got a big space of dry leaves, so I can very easily draw it overlap in there. It's not going to cause any trouble. Over here. Now there's a little bit of variation size-wise, but not too much. So that's looking good. I'm glad you do the pencil line because it's making it look really, really nice and all in the same kind of right shape. Mm-hmm.
The dog says.
Dog don't have opposable thumbs.
No.
Now, especially if you start from the top and work your way down, you might find like your leaves at the top are darker and yours at the bottom are too light. Pick up more paint and then go back into the bottom. Yep. You also might want to start doing leaves slightly smaller if you find kind of your new ones are overpowering your old ones, or water them down a bit so that they're not quite as bright. Now, because mine here are actually following this line a little bit too closely, whereas over here they're sticking out quite a bit, I'm going to add another one in here just to kind of make it clear that they're not like following a line. They're a natural bundle of leaves.
Our leaves, not painting.
Our leaves, not painted. And then one up here too. There. Oh, and then I didn't add my second stem. So I'm going to add that in there. And then I'm just going to fill in some of these spots just to kind of fill in the extra space. That's going to make it look pretty good. I'm going to make it look pretty full, honestly. There we go. I think that's about all it needs. And so you notice how the stems, they don't necessarily have to go anywhere. They don't have to connect to anything. They don't have to do anything. They're just there to kind of fill in some of that extra space. think he's about good. You can use a bow on top and then he'll be done. So I think that's the last card we'll paint. We'll go over and add some of the finishing details to the rest of them. Now that they're kind of dried up. But first, let's add a nice Christmas bow onto this. Looking good.
Yeah, it's not bad.
Yeah. Once you get the leaf shape.
Yeah.
Sometimes that's a trick. Like if you're just not getting the right leaf shape, just take some time off on a side piece of paper and practice different shapes until you find one you like. His leaf shapes can get really annoying, especially if you're kind of halfway between two different shapes and then all your leaves look kind of different. Just practice until you get the hang of one of them. And yeah, and then it'll make your life a lot easier. I've done a lot of florals where like it's not even one plant. It's supposed to be one plant, but it's a whole bunch of different plants because all the leaves look slightly different. Like some of them have different amount of lobes or different points or different. Yeah, it just doesn't. It looks weird to the eye, even if you don't know that, because your brain knows what a plant looks like and it knows that the leaves should all be the same. So that's an important thing to keep in mind. Mm-hmm. So for the bow, remember you've got your stalks above where your bow is going to go. And then just draw in a couple leaves and a couple loops. And these don't have to be perfect. You don't want to make them perfectly circles because, again, it'll look too unnatural. You make them kind of look like they're just a ribbon that's just kind of hanging out. And then do a little bit of a circle in the middle.
No, I got my ribbons going through my leaves.
That's okay.
Ghost ribbons.
Especially because your ribbon is supposed to kind of go over. Make sure you've got quite a bit of pigment if you're using a gold paint because you will want it to be thick enough that it doesn't look silly, like it doesn't look translucent, but it doesn't really matter too much either. It's allowed to look a little bit translucent. Yeah. There you go. Yeah, pretty good. So one way to make it easy is to make sure all your loops are done pretty quickly. It'll make them look more natural and more curved. If you spend too long trying to make it perfect, it's just going to look kind of wobbly and not look as natural. Whereas if you just draw the line nice and swoopy and smooth, it'll look good. Perfect. Okay, so we're going to let that one dry. I'm going to go through and erase some of my pencil lines and we'll add the little text at the bottom if we want. Doesn't have to say this, so I can say anything at once, but a lot of these will look better with a little bit of text, so let's go through and, I'll show off the other one here. So we got this one, which has kind of more pointy shaped leaves, but again, that nice diamond bunch shape, and a little bow at the top. Now, with this one here, we don't really need to add anything. If you want, you can add some text to it. Although we didn't do any text in paint, I guess this one has text in paint. But you could also do all your lettering in paint as well if you prefer. I think we're going to, the shimmer on this turned out really nice. You can really see the shimmer on it now. Alright, so I think the one that needs the most afterwork is the ornament one. Let's take a look at that picture again, because this one had some really nice little details on it. So if it's all dry, make sure it is. And you can see one of the things that the watercolor did is that it makes this neat little bloom effect when it dries if there's quite a bit of water, which just adds to the natural variation of watercolor and makes it look interesting. We're going to grab... Oh, okay, I do have some nice. So I've got some fine liner pens here. If you don't, you can just use a regular pen, it's fine. These are nice though because they're going to give you a very specific thickness. I'm going to use the thinnest one, but I'm going to test out the one I think I do. Yeah, because this effect is that kind of skinny, scrawly effect. I'll give you a look at what the other ones look like in comparison. So that was the 0.1. 0.1. Got the 0.3, which is noticeably thicker. The 0.5. And the 0.7. Oh, this one's kind of dried out. Good thing I didn't want to use that one. So the 0.7 might be really nice, like if you were trying to do, like for this one, we might use a thicker pen to kind of write a little message at the bottom here. But for right now, we're going to go with the skinniest one, which I have is the 0.1. We're going to start by drawing a line from the top here. Now this doesn't have to be straight. It can just be wibbly wobbly. Just kind of draw it going up. And see how that's not, it's not super straight or anything? It doesn't matter. It'll look cute either way if it's kind of over. You don't need to outline the top part of this thing. What you do want to do is just draw a couple circles around the thing. And again, it doesn't have to be perfect. You kind of just want it to kind of work. So what you don't need to do is go over this part. So just draw your circle from here all the way around to here. And just kind of, yeah, try to follow the outline shape, but not too carefully. And then just do it again. And I'm going to do another one. The one I'm looking at did a couple of extra lines, but I'm just going to do mine a full 3 lines all the way around. And it'll naturally start to develop some variation, like some thicker parts and some thinner parts where your lines are closer to each other. Yeah, so the one thing you want to do is you don't want scratchy, well, you can do scratchy lines too if you want. Like the one I'm looking at had quite a few open lines.
Yeah, that's what I was thinking.
But if you keep it really straight and just do one smooth line all the way around, because scratchy lines are really good for getting a closer shape to something, but you don't want it to be close. You want it to fall over into the white space and into the dark space. Yeah, that's looking good. Me too. And then, yeah, this one just says Merry Christmas. You can write whatever you want, Happy Holidays or anything else festive. But I think Merry Christmas looks pretty nice. If you look at this text here, it's really nice to actually follow the text that you think. Yeah,
I'm just doing my own thing.
You can do whatever. This text is nice because it has a bit of that scratchy kind of scrawly feel to it. Depending on how much white space you have on your page, you want to make sure you got it kind of close to the ornament, not too far. Definitely don't center this text because that would not look good for this style of card. It's very much an off-center kind of random type of style. So we're just going to do something similar to this, kind of this. You don't want it to be too big of letters because again, it's just that looks great.
Oh, hi, sweetheart.
Now, I'm just going to go over this and make these a little bit darker because my pen was quite light on those. And it's okay again if you get that kind of scratchy, scrawly effect. That'll actually suit this type of card quite nicely. There we go. Perfect. Okay, so that one's pretty much done. I think that one turned out really good. You can kind of see, again, like just that really light, gentle touch around the edges. You get the thing, and then you get the little text at the bottom. That looks really good. Alright, so what else do we have? I think this one doesn't really need anything on it.
I'm not gonna touch
good.
that. Yeah,
and this one, we don't need to add anything on this one either. Alright, so the last one is just the mistletoe one. And then we're done, and you guys have learned how to make 4 different types of Christmas cards. Actually, these all turned out quite different, so I'm pleased with that. We got the tree, the wreath with the lettering, the ornament, and then the mistletoe with kind of different lettering. So, that one here. And yeah, for this one, you could do this, and this would actually be a nice one to do with paint as well if you wrote out the mistletoe thing. Where's my eraser? I'm going to erase my triangle line now after making sure that it's all dry. Just go through and kind of erase your guidelines. Just gently, you don't want to be too rough or too harsh on anything. It's okay if a little bit of pencil is still showing. See, that wasn't fully dry, and see how it rubbed out a bit of the thing there? I'm actually not going to worry about it too much because that was a light leaf in the first place, and it kind of just gives it a little bit of natural white space. But if it did, I could just go back in and add some more paint on top of it. think my 0.7 here was pretty dried out. Okay, it's freaking good. I'm gonna go in with paint and draw my little texture. And I'm actually gonna write under the mistletoe because I think that's a little bit cuter than just mistletoe, which doesn't make a lot of sense to me. I am gonna use a thinner
Merry Christmas.
thinner, yeah. I'm gonna use a thinner brush for this just because I'm putting quite a bit of text. If you're just writing something like mistletoe, you could use a bigger brush. And I'm gonna use a script font on this. If you're really good at lettering, you might have a nice style that you use for this. One of the things to do if you're doing lettering like this is to make sure your brush is quite wet when doing it. Not so wet that it's gonna like leave a big blob, but wet enough that it just flows out of your brush. If you need more, go back and get more paint, because if it's too dry, the letters won't flow naturally.
Flashbacks to learning medieval scribal techniques. Don't let your quill dry out.
Pretty much. There we go, under the mistletoe.
You're gonna have to put the toe on the bottom here.
Yeah, always try to plan out where your letter's going. Again, if you know you struggle with that kind of thing, draw it in pencil first so that you know where your letters go. And I'm just going to add some little squiggly curly cues to the end of that E there. A little bit more interest. I'm mad that I looped in my E on the top here. I didn't leave enough of a gap. But the rest of the letters are all very clear. Oh yeah, that's cute.
Made it work.
And that M there, so I can leave a little bit of something. Yeah, one of the nice things you can do in this kind of thing is just extend your letters and they'll kind of look more fancy. Alright, okay, I think we're all done here. Oh, and my camera's out for some reason. Of course it is. That's back. Wonderful. Okay. I'm actually going to see if I can erase this little bit of pigment up in the corner here that I don't like. So I just put water on top of it, and I'm just going to kind of try to blot at it. See if I can get rid of some of it. I think that did make it a little bit duller. I'm going to do it one more time. Yeah, that's already much lighter. You just kind of rub at it with the brush with only water on it. And then it'll just blot away, and that's much less prominent. Oh, we gotta paint by numbers to do over Christmas. I had some of those like really extensive ones, and I never ever finished them. But the little ones I can get through.
I had a Gargoyles paint by numbers.
Did you ever finish it?
Yep, that was the only one I ever finished. Was a Gargoyles
that's actually
one.
Impressive. Yeah, I never ever make it through those things. Alright, so hopefully one of these cards is something that you'd be able to do. Oh, I'll go through and, well, I mean, it's really easy. To cut these, just make sure you use a ruler. Just use a ruler to draw the line and then cut along the ruler line. Otherwise, you're going to have a mess. It's not going to be even. Same with the bottom here. If you're cutting off like a curve like we are, because the curve of the paper is naturally there, use a ruler, measure it out, and cut it evenly. Otherwise, your lines are going to be yeah, so a couple different styles of cards here. One thing I'd recommend too is if you're doing it on like a thin paper like this, one thing that is really nice is instead of folding it over in half, just cut the paper into a little rectangle and then glue it onto cardstock instead. That's a nice way of doing it so that your card is still a nice stiff card, but your paper that you actually use to paint is a watercolor paper, which has the thickness and able to absorb the water. Another thing you can do is use like a cheap bought card or like a blank card and glue it onto that. Or you can just buy cardstock and make the card yourself. So lots of different ideas, different options. Hopefully you guys found something cute and something that you can do last minute if you ever need a card and yeah, you don't have one handy. Or if you just want to do something that's easy and personalized. It's nice to do ones that come from the heart. So thanks everyone for tuning in. I hope you enjoyed it. I hope you're having a lovely holiday season and a nice Christmas Eve. And hope you have a good Christmas tomorrow. In the art channel on AT Discord. I don't know what that means, Amy. But yes. Discord something? Yes, probably. Oh, the Dork Tales Discord. Oh, you did things? Oh, exciting. Yay. Alright, my camera's dying. Okay, so, my camera's dying, but hopefully there were some fun cards that you liked and something cool to do. If you have any questions or comments or you make one of these cards, please tag me in it on Instagram or post it as a comment on YouTube. And tune in later. I think I'm going to be doing dog Christmas outfits at some point this week, and then it's going to be a book review before the end of the year, just on the books I recommend from this year. So tune in later, keep your eyes peeled, like and subscribe, and my camera's gone again, so I'll see you guys later.